All right. Over here. How's it going? Hello, Lisa. Happy Sunday.
Hi, happy Sunday.
It's been a minute. Let me bring us up here. It's been a minute. I haven't seen you in a while. How are you?
Yes, I am so good. Thank you for having me. How are you, George?
I'm great. I'm trying to not get the, what do you call it? The Monday scaries. We're cruising into the week, but I'm excited. I'm excited to talk about what we're here talking about. In fact, actually, I'm like legitimately excited because I want to hear about some of your research. So let's introduce you. And for people who are watching, we're talking with Lisa VanArsdale this evening. We're going to talk about Lisa joins a cult, her upcoming performance on March 23rd at SteelStacks in Bethlehem.
And 22nd. There's two of them.
Oh, there's two.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm glad that I have you here so that you can let me know that. I want to thank a quick thank you to our sponsors, WDIY, Wind Creek Event Center, Michael Bernardin with Remax Real Estate, Molly's Irish Grill and Sports Pub, and Banco Beverage. All these good guys, make sure you give them a follow. They support us. They let us do awesome stuff like this, so we appreciate it. Lisa, for people who are not familiar, is a comedian, podcast host, and a cult enthusiast, apparently, whose love of these culty groups and curiosity about the divine has taken her to holy sites all around the world. It's really interesting. So the years of visiting all of these has culminated in this really interesting evening that also communicates tenderness and humor with a side of humor as well. So we are here to talk about it and to get more into it. So welcome, Lisa VanArsdale. Yay!
Yay!
Everybody who's watching is cheering for you. So yeah, let's talk about this. First of all, talk about where you came up with this idea, or talk a little bit about what you've been doing, comedian-wise and performing, and how you came to deciding, I want to make a show about cults.
Sure. Well, so I am a, local comedian. I'm pretty committed to keeping comedy as a hobby, which is rare. Most people, want to be the next Kevin Hart or whatever. I don't feel that way. For me, it's more of a creative outlet and like a social opportunity in the area. But Arts Quest had said that they would like me to do a one-woman show, which is not something that would have ever been on my to-do list.
I'm free that day. I will do that.
Just not an ambition that I would come up with for myself, but it seemed like a worthy challenge and a growing opportunity. So we spitballed ideas for what it could be about. And in that meeting, I was just like yammering on about cults that I visited and how much I love doing it. And then we were like, oh, that's what the show should be about. Duh.
Well, yeah. I mean, let's not even go any further than that. What? Like, who does that? How does this even begin? What's the first cult you visited? Why?
Well, okay. So disclaimer, I don't like to necessarily like blatantly label any group a cult. Just because it can be very alienating, and I don't want to alienate anyone or offend anyone.
You picked a great subject. Let's go right into it.
Very trendy.
I don't want to offend anyone, but I'll pick the worst one. Yeah,
and the reason why I'm hesitant, and I say this in the show too, is because the term cult is an inherently pejorative label. Nobody thinks that cults are a good idea. Nobody thinks they're joining one. And I think very few people think they're starting one, at least at first. So if you say to someone, hey, you're in a cult, that's a great way to start a confrontation, but not a good way to get anything accomplished. But the show deals completely with religious culty groups. And I'm trying to think when the first time would have been that I think my go-to answer for like visiting a religious group where I interacted like with the people and didn't just like go to see their, like huge breathtaking cathedral or temple or whatever, where I actually like had conversations with people, I would have been 23 and I went to a Rasta community in Jamaica. Okay. So that's the first one that I can think of. It might have been happening earlier.
And I can see right away how you get yourself into trouble, because there would be a lot of people who would not consider that.
Exactly. And I am not saying that I would either. The way I view it is cultiness is a spectrum. Because it's an inherently pejorative term, you can't really define it. And this is an idea that I got from the book Cultish by Amanda Montell. So if you want more information on that, that's what you want to read. But basically, because we can't define it, you have to look at well, these are characteristics that culty groups tend to have. So let me look at this group and see how many of these boxes they're checking. And what I do in the show is I go through what several of those boxes are or could be, and then I highlight a group that's like a shining example of that particular category. So
there's a chance that you might be slightly offended during the show, possibly, so just.
If you want to be, I say in the show that I'm going to be talking about a lot of different groups. It could be a group that you or someone you love is involved with. It could be a group that you've always thought of as just, simple, devout, charming people. I don't think that being offended is an emotion that is worthwhile most of the time. So I invite people, instead of being offended, to think about what other groups do I see in the world, whether I agree with them or not, who might check some of these boxes, and how can I look for meaning there?
We've been talking 7 minutes just about kind of the semantics of the word cult, It shows you how powerful it can be to be told that you might be in one, or
yes.
So I think we've established kind of that. We get it. We're trying to come at it, but you had to name it something.
And the name is meant to be, an attention grabber as well.
Okay. So you witness or you attend Rastafarian experience. And
I've been
talk about that in
some of your Rasta communities. Yeah.
Sure. Talk about some of that and maybe some of the other experiences you've had.
Oh, well, they run the gamut. So you want me to talk about Rastas specifically?
Well, I mean, just in terms of how you went on this path, it would be interesting enough that you just went to Rasta, right? So
sure.
How do you go from that to another one, or what's maybe another group? How do you get in that circuit, so to speak?
Well, it just sort of became a hobby. So I was raised very religious.
Okay.
And was raised to know, this is what we believe, and here are the Bible verses that back that up, and here's what the other people believe, and here's why their translation of the Bible is wrong. And that's all you need to know. You don't need to question this. You don't need to think critically. I told you, and that's that. We're right. They're wrong. They're going to hell. We're not. So you want to get people to believe what we believe and save their souls and all of that. So I think to paint with a broad brush, being taught those things so young made me very curious about what other people believe. And I've never been one to not ask questions and follow my curiosity and think critically. And I also really love humans. I really love people. So it just kind of became a hobby, a natural hobby. I'm in India, so it goes without saying that I'm going to visit as many Hindu temples as I can, and the Lotus Temple and the Taj Mahal. Or I'm in Jamaica, so I'm going to go visit this Rasta group this time, and when I come back in a year, I'm going to go visit that Rasta group that time, because I'll be closer to them.
Yeah, so you're playing from a real place of exploration and wanting to learn, right? I mean, that's what it seems like.
Absolutely. Yeah, sure. Absolutely. And, I started doing this eons ago. It was never with the intention of turning it into any sort of content. It was for my own curious joy.
You're playing the long game for decades to finally have your one-woman show at SteelStacks. That was the plan.
The lofty goal of Bethlehem, Pennsylvania.
It's just, it'd be a fun journey. So this is a comedy performance, but it doesn't seem like it's all comedy. I mean, of course, like you have some heartfelt, serious topics in there. So can you kind of give like, I don't know, like give without giving too much away, like an example or something of what people can expect?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, I talk about 5 different like categories of things that could make you think that a group is a cult. And I talk about, I believe, 9 different groups that I visited during the show. So some of those categories have 1 group, some of them have 2, depending on how long the stories are. I also talk about
giving away. Can we go through the categories, or is that giving stuff away?
I think that might be giving too much away. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, the reason that I'm asking that is like cult-wise. I'm trying to find one like Wawa, loving Wawa. Could that be a cult, or is it missing? Is it missing like one of the 4?
It's not checking all the boxes. I'll tell you that much.
Well, but that's interesting. It's like when do you cross that line of going from this is kind of fun and then to like now I'm giving them my paycheck and stuff.
Yeah, and that can be a really slippery slope, and it's different for every group and it's different for every person. So it's going to be a varied experience from one situation to another.
Right. And I stopped you in the middle of that. I apologize. You were talking about the experience and what people can look forward to.
So yeah, I'll talk about 9 different groups that I've spent time with, some more intimately than others. And those will be in reference, like each one kind of has like this one's a really good example of that particular category. So I talk about 9 different groups. And then also I talk about my own religious upbringing and how that all kind of like unraveled, and where my parents were coming from with their religious upbringings as well. And a very important thing to know that's part of the experience is that they're opening the doors an hour early so that people can see all of the stuff that I've collected from these groups. It's all going to be on display. Yeah. There's going to be tables like, here's the Rasta table, here's the Mormon table, here's the whatever table. And it'll be all of the pamphlets that I've gotten from them, books they've given me or suckered me into buying. There'll be a couple articles of clothing, tchotchke stuff. It'll be like a very please touch, like, feel free to pick them up, read them, page through them, take pictures with them, sort of thing. So trying to make it very immersive. And also sorry?
No, keep going.
Okay. The first 50 people in the door, if there are 50 people, bold of me to hope that 50 tickets sell for each show. But the first 50 people in the door for each show will get, I wish I had one with me, a fan, like your hot fan. Not like a ceiling fan, like you hold it and fan yourself.
I know a couple of guys who would be very excited about that, but yeah, that's good.
Yeah, air conditioners weren't in the budget, unfortunately. No, but the first 50 people will get a fan, and the fan has the logo for the show on one side, and then on the other side, this was kind of my passion project. I'm a crafty person more than I am a performer. Each fan has a different quote on the reverse side, and it's a quote that I've found through the years in reading different books, for the most part, or like heard a profound quote from someone, and they're all about, prayer and faith and God and heaven and stuff like that. And some of them are really, really poignant, and some of them are just funny or amusing. And the hope had been originally to have them more incorporated into the show, but there's only so much time, so they became
so many hands. Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like we were joking, we're laughing about, but this is really cool to have a one-woman performance where, it's not your standard comedy show. Probably going to learn something from it, maybe get a little uncomfortable here and there, which is what I think most people would like in something like this.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, I think it's unique and it's special that we have a place like SteelStacks to host this, and the fact that we're doing it. Like, I know you, and I know like Kate Hughes has hosted one woman performances. That's cool. That's great. Like, more of these.
Hers were amazing. I went to one of hers, and it was so helpful to watch Kate's and just like see how she does it. And I'm like, oh, okay, I see how she, you know, she goes and she changes into a different outfit while this video plays. And I'm going to be doing that now. So there was a lot of watching of one person shows as well during this process.
Very cool. What was your most recent cult experience like that happened in reference to this show?
Well, the show was already written. But I recently, in October, again, I didn't do any of this for material. This is just something I enjoy doing. I did a trip through New England where I stopped at a few different places. One of them is the Oneida Mansion. Have you ever heard of that?
I've heard of it. I don't think I'm super familiar.
I'm obsessed. So this group is no longer around. But there was a group in the late 1800s, early 1900s, maybe, who they lived in this mansion, and it was a sex cult. So there's usually some form of sexual control in any religious group, whether that's saving sex for marriage or we believe in polygamy or whatever. This group, you weren't allowed to have monogamous relationships. You had to sign up to have sex with people, and they had rooms designated for having sex, and you weren't allowed to have sex with someone too often, because then you might start getting attached. So then the board might not allow you, and so you just go into the room, you have sex, nobody has sleepovers, there's no you then snuggle through the night together or anything. And it's about 4 hours north of here.
Were they, I mean, honest question, were they doing that to procreate? Were they making babies from that? Or was it for
So they were not first. They wanted to severely limit the amount of procreation. There were children born to this community. They had some sort of odd name for them that I can't remember. And then they'd be raised communally, and you also weren't allowed to like show favor to your bio children or anything. But they wanted to limit that. So they would often have the older women sleep with young boys and like show them their way around the female anatomy, because they wouldn't be able to get pregnant anymore. So they had their ways of restricting things. Sorry?
How long ago was this community going on?
I think they were over like early 1900s. I could be wrong. It could have ended in the late 1800s.
Just like.
But they unanimously agreed, like, yeah, we're not going to be a community anymore. Like, they voted, and they were like, okay, we're not a community anymore. And it was the children who kind of convinced them to put that to a vote.
Like, this is really weird.
And so then they became just like a successful business venture. And if you look in your silverware drawer, you will likely find that your silverware is made by Oneida LLC.
What?
I went home and looked in my silverware drawer, and sure enough, my forks and spoons and knives are all Oneida.
Yikes.
They were a wildly successful silverware company and kitchenware company after they stopped being a sex cult. And my best souvenir was they took spoon handles and made them into barrettes. I bought a couple. They're so good. I love recycled art. But that's probably one of my more recent ones. And it didn't make it into the show because those people aren't around anymore. But they're terribly fascinating. If you ever need a weekend trip, I 10 out of 10 recommend staying at the Oneida Mansion. You might not sleep well. But it's an incredible time. It's just kind of creepy to be there.
Once you like know, if you like read about it and go, like, I guess I would rather learn about it after I was there. Be like,
well, they have a pretty good museum on the ground floor and very, very knowledgeable tour guides. I was talking to my tour guide after the fact, and I like to ask people, like, you know, you clearly know a lot about this group. Would you consider them a cult? Mm-hmm. And he said no.
Why?
He said, well, a cult is a group that you can't leave.
But isn't that the same thing as like saying an abusive relationship? Like, why don't you just leave? Like
exactly. And that's what I tried to point out to him. Like, well, yeah, these people are free to leave, but if they do, they've already given all of their finances and assets to the group. Yeah. And where the hell are they going to go? So sure, they can leave, but it's a lot easier said than done. And that's what a lot of people consider their only criteria for a cult. And it's obviously a much more nuanced thing than that. But everyone should go check out Oneida. And they're pitchable for Oneida at my show.
I would think too, you know, I don't want to speak out of turn or anything, but I'm sure there may be people who, you know, I know cults, when we're talking like real talk, legitimately, it might not be something you necessarily want to be in. So like if people are looking to get out of one, have you have any experience with that? Or is that like a topic that you'll broach at all?
I don't really talk about that in the show, but I will say this. If someone that you care about is in a group that you think might be a cult and you're concerned for their well-being, don't say, hey, I think you're in a cult, because again, that's the end of that conversation. And any culty group worth its weight is going to tell their members or potential members ahead of time, you know, you're going to go home to visit and your family is going to tell you that you're in a cult and they're going to tell you this and that. And you know what that means? That means that they don't support you, or that means that they're not chosen, or that means that they're demonic or whatever. So they cover that ahead of time. So rather than saying, hey, I think you're in a cult, just make it as clear as possible that they can always come home to you, no matter what. Whether or not they ever do is not guaranteed, but it'll be a lot easier when the time comes if they know that they have somewhere to go and people to return to.
And I think it's, you know, it's obviously you're taking that seriously. And I think that's what makes this performance even more, you know, evocative. The fact that it's all out there and you're going to be really open with your experiences. And I think it's great. I'm looking forward to it.
And there's a Q&A after, by the way. There's a question and answer after.
Well, I'm sure even too, like walking through your collection, you know, that you've curated, I think it would just be fascinating in and of itself. So yeah, okay. But let me bring this back on screen here. And how have things been going otherwise? You've just been, you know, working on this for the last how long does it take to put a show like this together?
Well, it was brought up to me 3 years ago. A few months later, we had the discussion and like agreed that it would be about cults, and I was going to live at the beach for the summer. So I like used that time to compile notes about all of the groups I had already visited, and then spent the fall visiting more and have visited more and more and more since then. So it was kind of nice to have like legitimate permission to make it a priority to do this thing that I love doing. And it took a really, really long time to be like, okay, this is how I want the format of the show to be. This is the group that I should talk about for this thing. And I never thought that it would take this long to make it happen, but it's been a journey and the creative process has played out. So,
well, yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to see it. I hope other people take the opportunity to see it as well. Lisa joins a cult on March 23rd. And 22nd. I guess the question that I did want to ask you, and I told you I wouldn't, and I wasn't going to forget. What do you hope people get out of this? You know, what is something I can't? You said it's relative, it's subjective for everyone, but maybe what is something that you hope some people get out of it?
At the risk of sounding like a total like Susie Cream Cheese Pollyanna, I really hope that people will leave more willing to explore and to bridge a gap with people that they don't agree with. I think our society, because of our political situation, is really beginning to divide people to the point where they're not willing to even have empathy toward whoever they consider their opposite. And I hope to bridge that gap a little bit.
Well, that is awesome. I'm really happy we got time to talk. I know we've been like going back and forth, but this is great. Sorry, I'm trying to bring this back up. There we go. Lisa joins the cult, everybody. Saturday, March 23rd and 22nd, SteelStacks.org for tickets. Q&A afterwards. There's going to be a whole little artifact show out front. Lisa, always a pleasure to talk to you. Sorry, I brought you off screen there. Always a pleasure to talk to you. Looking forward to it. Hold on. You hold on. Everybody else, thank you for watching, and we'll talk to you.
Thanks, everyone. Please come support Arts Quest. Yay!